Hey listeners, welcome back. Tonight, I've got something a little different. A slow burning, quiet tale that takes us back to the year 1971. It's the kind of story best listened to with the lights low, your eyes closed, and the night pressing gently at the windows. So settle in, breathe deep, and let the stillness take over. This is part one of The Wind from Cradle Hollow. I never meant to stay in Cradle Hollow. I had only intended to pass through. It was 1971, and I was 23 years old, newly discharged from the Navy with nothing in my pockets but a few bills and a weathered notebook. I was drifting, hitching from town to town with the kind of directionless freedom that only exists in your 20s. But the tires blew out on my second-hand Ford just outside of Cradle Hollow. And by the time I got them fixed, the sun was going down and the fog had rolled in thick from the trees. It wasn't on most maps. I'd only seen the sign once. Cradle Hollow, pop, 241 inches, faded green, tilted sideways. If I had blinked, I might have missed it. The gas station was the only thing open. A squat brick building with one flickering light and an old man behind the counter who smelled like pipe smoke and cedar. He told me the mechanic wouldn't be in until morning and suggested I stay the night at the boarding house up the hill. I could see it from the lot. A big grey house with a wraparound porch, half hidden by tall oaks. Just knock, he said. Miss Laverne always has a room. I still remember the way the boards creaked under my boots as I climbed the porch steps. I remember how the screen door whispered shut behind me, and how a single light glowed in the foyer like a candle held up in the dark. Miss Laverne was waiting. She looked like someone who had stopped aging in her late 50s and decided not to continue. Iron grey hair in a tight bun, a soft voice, and hands that moved like she was folding invisible linen. "You'll take the blue room," she said. "End of the hall. Leave your boots outside." I slept lightly that night, and not because the bed was uncomfortable. The room was clean, the sheets crisp. But there was a sound, a low, hollow moan that seemed to drift in through the cracked window around 3 in the morning. I thought it was the wind. It had to be the wind. But Cradle Hollow was still when I woke. Too still. The kind of quiet that pushes against your ears. Breakfast was served at 7 sharp. Coffee, toast, and stewed apples. Miss Laverne didn't ask many questions, and I didn't offer much. She only said, "You can stay as long as you need." I didn't plan to stay longer than a day, but the mechanic never came. When I returned to the gas station, the man behind the counter said, "Joe's out sick. Be back tomorrow." Tomorrow turned into the next day, then another. And by the end of the week, it no longer seemed strange that I was still in Cradle Hollow. The town was small, barely more than a dozen streets. The post office was inside the general store. The diner served one thing a day. Meatloaf Monday, stew on Tuesday, fried chicken on Friday. People were polite, but reserved. They smiled with their mouths, but rarely with their eyes. And then there was the wind. It came every night around 3. A long, slow exhale that curled against the windows like breath on cold glass. Always at the same time. Always low, like something remembering how to speak. "That's just the hollow breathing," Miss Laverne said when I asked. She poured more coffee without looking up. It does that sometimes. I might have left, should have left, but something kept me there. Not fear, not comfort either. A sort of pull, like standing at the edge of deep water and not knowing whether it was safe to step in. One evening, about 10 days in, I wandered past the edge of town. There was a trail just beyond the churchyard, barely marked. Locals called it the Hollow Path. I followed it. The trees grew thicker as I walked. The air changed, heavier, cooler. The sound of the wind was different here, not blowing through leaves, but winding around them. And then I saw it. At the bottom of a shallow slope, tucked between trees, like a forgotten thought, was a cabin. Collapsed on one side, roof sunken, door hanging loose on its hinges. But it was real. The wood was old, silvered with rot. Inside, there was nothing but a table, a broken chair, and an empty fireplace. Yet I felt watched. Not threatened, but noted, as if the place had seen me before. I turned to leave, and I heard something. Not footsteps, not words. A sound like someone whispering through cupped hands, but when I turned, the path was empty. I told myself it was the wind again. I told myself a lot of things. But that night, when the moaning wind came back, it sounded less like wind and more like weeping. This was just part one of the wind from Cradle Hollow. To hear what happens next, the strange silence, the faces in the fog, and the truth behind the hollow. Stay tuned for part 2. Be sure to subscribe and let the quiet take you deeper.